Hello, hello. Here we are on another Friday to hear what our fellow humans are up to in the world. And why Friday, you may ask? Well, because it's the day that was named after the Norse goddess Frida, who's kind of a badass because she's the goddess associated with love, beauty, fertility, sex, war, gold, magic, foreseeing and influence in the future. Seems like a good day to explore the human condition. So let's get started and wrap up the week with some positivity. This week we have Desiree Mittman with us. And I'm going to just, are you there, Desiree?
I'm here. Hey.
Okay. Hold on once. Okay. So, Desiree, if you can just give us a little information about who you are and where you're from
Sure.
to start out.
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. Desiree Mittman here. Thank you so much, Diane, for the opportunity to meet and connect with you and your amazing audience. I greatly appreciate this opportunity. So, a little bit about me. I'm the founder of Mustard Seed Financial Coaching, which helps professional women who are feeling overwhelmed or stressed around their money achieve financial confidence, create a positive money mindset, and boost their overall net worth. Now, one of the greatest privileges that I personally have in helping women improve their quality of life so that they can live a life of abundance. I have the opportunity to consistently share knowledge and create these positive conversations surrounding money. And I believe if everything that we do comes to fruition, we can imagine a world where financial education and resources are available to everyone, where anyone can seek their own financial freedom, accelerate their wealth, and leave a meaningful legacy behind.
That's awesome. Really awesome. What got you into doing this?
So, my path personally along this financial journey, it began in two places that may feel familiar for many of you. I was feeling very overwhelmed and embarrassed with where I was financially. So, if you've ever had this thought that you should be so much further along financially than you are, then you're in a safe place because that's where I was at as well. And I'm not saying I'm making that comparison against myself and others. I'm comparing myself to me, or for you, you're comparing yourself to you. I feel like I had so much more potential. The one, but I was just feeling very overwhelmed, stressed, or frustrated about my money. So the overwhelmed part was because I had amassed six figures worth of debt. Now, most of this debt was in student loans, but make no mistakes, I had friends with car loans and credit card debts and department store debts, and personal loans as well. They were all my friends, all of them on a monthly basis with their hand held out wanting money. And I was also feeling embarrassed because I knew better. I had earned two undergraduate degrees from North Carolina State University in accounting and business, and I also have an MBA from Wake Forest University. So at that point in time in my life, I had almost 10 years or so of financial services experience working for one of the largest banks globally, and I hit rock bottom financially. So while my closet could boast some very impressive name brands, and I looked like I had it all together, I distinctly remember the day that I found myself in the kitchen with my back against a refrigerator, a black refrigerator, on the floor, just crying. It was tears of frustration because I kept asking myself how. I could not figure out where all my money went. Why was I constantly overdrawing my account, trying to keep up with the Joneses? And just for a reminder for all of our listeners, my name is Desiree Mittman. So there's no J anywhere whatsoever in my name. So, and then just thinking at the end of the year, especially now around tax time, when you do have your pay stub and you look at how much money you made, and then you look back and you're like, do I have anything to show for everything that I earned? And that's where a lot of the frustration came in. So, in the midst of my tears at that point in time, I made a promise to myself that I would not be here again ever. So the plan for my financial freedom began there. And the commitment that I made to myself was I would no longer deny my way out of debt, ignore my way out of debt, wish my way out of debt, or cry my way out of debt. So the only way for me to get to zero with my debt was to learn and earn my way out. And 6 short years later, I did exactly that. I began sowing seeds by using tools, tactics, and systems I knew worked. And throughout this journey, I formulated a plan that combined everything that I learned along the way and created a blueprint, or a course, if you will, where you can do the same. That course is called Women Are Worthy of Wealth, the Blueprint to Money Mindshift. And you can find that course on mastermind.com. The easiest way to search for it is you can just search, put in my name, my last name, Mittman, Mittman, under Find a Course, and it will pop up.
Yeah, I
And
mentioned
so,
the link in the chat as well. So
awesome. Thanks, Saya. So my plan not only set me up for financial freedom, it positioned me to lead three non-W-2 businesses, including launching a financial coaching business called Mustard Seed Financial Coaching that at this point in time has helped over 200 women demolish personal or business debt. And so my results speak for themselves. So I've helped a single mom with 2 kids working in the education industry to pay off $5,000 in debt and create $1,000 emergency fund within a 3-month time period. Over a year, I provided guidance to a C-suite mom and her family to pay off well into the 6 figures worth of debt, create a financial strategic plan where they can buy a rental property every 2 years to leave a meaningful legacy behind to their kids. And then personally, I've paid off over $250,000 of personal and business debt. So I turned overwhelm, embarrassment, and defeat into financial freedom and success, and help women from the C-suite to entrepreneurs and single moms do the same thing.
that's awesome. So here's a question: how do you, or why do you think women? Do you think women are more prone to get themselves into financial pickle, and why?
That's a good question. I would say to that, not necessarily. However, in my opinion, I do feel like women have a couple of things that are just a little bit extra compared to men. First and foremost, we recently celebrated um, the Equal Pay Day for women, and that is white women, I should say, in the United States. For African Americans, that payday typically doesn't happen until much later in the year, so Q4. For Latinos, it's around that same time frame. For Asians, it's in the middle of the year. Now, what is that equal pay? That equal pay is at that point in time in the year. That is when women will actually start making about the same thing that men start to make. They have to wait until that time frame because from say January 1 up to that date, we have that gap. And so I would say from that perspective, there is a wage gap in the United States. That should be no shock to anybody that's listening in. So that's one. Two, just from a family perspective and the way that our families are set up in today's society, you do have a lot of single households and a lot of single moms. So they are carrying a little bit more of the burden. So not necessarily us getting into a pickle. However, there's a little bit more of a burden for being a female in the society.
Right. Do you think there's a difference in mindset though, on how
Oh,
money's handled, or how women are taught to handle money growing up versus men?
so I don't want to speak in general terms, so I'll speak for myself. I would say yes. Um, and for me personally, which is one of the reasons why I launched Mustard Seed Financial Coaching, was the conversations that I had in my family around the dinner table were not some of the conversations that I heard some of my coworkers when I was in investment banking, they had with their kids around the dinner table. And I'm not saying that the conversations we had when I was growing up were wrong. It's just that we didn't talk about money. It was like that taboo subject that we didn't talk about in my household. And so as I was navigating throughout life and not truly understanding and appreciating some of the things that I do know now, getting into those valleys, if you will, of mismanagement of money. And let me give you an example and I'll tell you a story. So although this doesn't happen now, I'm sure a lot of our listeners can appreciate when we were in college. And on a lot of our college campuses, credit card companies could come onto the campus.
Yeah.
And so for a free t-shirt, I mean, work with me, guys. For a
It's
free
free,
t-shirt,
free,
it's
free.
free. I'm in college. What do you I don't want to do laundry every week.
Yeah.
So for a free t-shirt, you could just apply for a credit card. And I did that. And I applied for a lot of credit cards because I was like, hey, if I apply for 5, that's like, I don't have to do the laundry for that week. And so not knowing the effects that would have on my credit, because I'm like, oh, well, I have a credit card for $500. I don't have a job. So why would you give me, like, I know now, but then I was like, why would you, a credit card, give me any money? Like, I am a broke college student and I am
Right.
here for the t-shirt. But they did. I mean, and now, thank goodness for all of our current college students. You don't have to go through that pressure of wanting a free t-shirt in exchange for some dips, if you will, in your financial journey. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and why not? Did they change the rules or?
Yeah, so they enacted the law, and I don't remember the law off the top of my head, where credit card companies were basically banned from being on college campuses because they saw it as you are I don't want to say soliciting of minors because it has a completely legal different connotation to it. But in essence, you are soliciting your services to people that, for the vast majority, do not have jobs. They do not know the financial ramifications behind having that credit card. And for a lot of them, they will rack up the credit card debt and then not truly understand the short term, and I do say short, and I know a lot of people may disagree with me, but the short term effects that it can have on your credit coming right out of college. Now, this is the reason why I say short term, is because in the event that you amass all this credit and then during that time frame, you could actually file for bankruptcy. And mind you, that can be on your record for 7 to 10 years. I consider that short term because for a lot of us, you have time, although you may not think you do have time to make that pivot in your financial journey so that, once again, you can leave that meaningful legacy, financial legacy behind to your loved ones or to society as a whole. You do have time to turn around where your current trajectory is on your path.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna. This might be a little bit of a sidestep in this conversation, but I'm gonna move there anyway, and you can steer me back in if I'm going in the wrong place. I just listened to a TED talk from, I think it was TEDx Cambridge, um, called "The Privileged Poor," and it was by an assistant professor at Harvard, Anthony Abraham Jack, and he did this amazing TED talk on the privileged poor and on cultural equity. And I'm going to bring it back to the credit cards in school, because what his message was that even if the privileged poor get into Ivy League schools, they get accepted into the school, and it's that opportunity. They don't have the cultural capital to understand necessarily what to do with that degree. And so, with these credit card companies on campus, I'd venture to guess that it really served as a way to keep the disenfranchised students more disenfranchised as they became adults. Because if you're coming from a richer family you're not needing the free T-shirt because your parents are paying for your laundry to get done. And you don't need
Absolutely.
credit cards because your parents gave them to you. If you walk into a school poor, like Anthony said in the TED talk, what the schools don't realize is like during Christmas break when they close down and turn the heat down and lower the lights, there's still a bunch of poor kids that can't afford to go home that are now trying to figure out how to eat because the cafeteria is closed. You're going to hand them a free credit card, and of course they're going to go out and use that to go buy food and get laundry done. So you're kind of the whole thing seems like it would perpetuate keeping people from, like, you give them the opportunity, like you give them the ticket, but you don't show them where the door is.
Absolutely. And
So
that's absolutely spot on. So if you look at it from like a demographics perspective, which I haven't listened to this particular TED talk, but yes, I could definitely talk about it. So if you look at the demographics of how wealth is traditionally built within the United States, a lot of wealth is traditionally built either by real estate or by being in the market, the market being the stock market. And for a lot of your quote unquote disenfranchised individuals, you really either have to know someone traditionally, know someone that is in that space. So like I'm talking about the market, like having a broker or someone like that. That knows what they're doing, because the barrier to entry traditionally, not now, but the barrier to entry was so high. And it was seen as like the good old boys club, which I'm sure a lot of our listeners would definitely understand what that terminology is, where you're keeping that information very much insulated, and it's remaining contained and just circulating within the quote unquote in crowd. You're not letting that information seep out. And that's something that I'd like to change the game, if you will, on sharing that financial information to as many people that I possibly can. And so going back to this particular example, so you have like the stockbrokers and the market from that perspective, where you did have that high barrier to entry. When it came to real estate, although we still have a lot of laws on the books in order to not discriminate from that perspective. However, if you're looking at the maps in any given city and saying, oh, I want to live on this side of town because it has better schools, or I want to live on this side of town because it is up and coming. When you look at that tax base is going to be very, very much different. And if you look back to throughout the records, it is going to be based on a certain demographic of that population set. And so if you're expecting a poorer side of town to immediately amass in value, if you will, based on the real estate, it's not going to happen overnight. Typically, you would have those individuals that did not want to be associated with that particular side of town be on the other side of town, and then the prices of real estate would increase exponentially on that side of town versus the poorer side of town. And so you can also see this now, wrapping and going back to this college example of the credit cards and not knowing what you need to do, and to your point of not being able to afford to go home. Like your parents give you, enough money to get to school, and they're like, you're there until May. So we
yeah,
sent you there, and then you're there till May, and then we'll bring you home. That's it. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. No, I found the talk to be really interesting. You should check it out because it was, he really is an eloquent speaker, and he seems like an amazing human being. And he threw a bunch of terms at me that I hadn't heard before, and when I heard them, I was like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. Like it's like things that going back to money management. It's stuff
Yep.
that you look at your paycheck and you know that you should have more money in the bank. You know you should be doing better, but
Absolutely.
you can't figure out how you got to this point in the year. And you're looking at your bank balance and your W-2 form, and you're like, okay, they're not matching up, and how did that happen? You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so
Yeah, and just knowing, like, So I look at, and I've had clients that I've worked with, and we talk about credit card debt all the time. And I'm like, look, it's a game. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's a game. I said, it's truly a game when you take a step back and you look at it, because I don't necessarily think that credit cards are bad. I feel like we need to check our discipline, our financial money management discipline, which may need to be strengthened, and it's not the credit card company's fault. What does come into play, though, is that the credit card companies spend millions upon millions of dollars on an annual basis learning your money psychology, how you interact, and how each of their individual customers interact with money. And so, what do we mean? What do I mean when I say it's a game? I still utilize credit cards even though I am debt free. I utilize credit cards mainly for the points, and I was going to buy it anyway. And so, for the credit card companies that I deal with, I am considered basically a deadbeat, because I I use a credit card and then I pay it off. I use it and I pay it off. So they're not getting any interest from me. This is where the game comes in. In the event that I was, like when I was paying off my student loans, I looked at to see what was my annual interest rate on a daily basis. And
Right.
then here's the game part. I would see, say, if my annual interest was $2, then I would set up, as I'm getting rid of that piece of debt, I would set up and say, okay, I know for any payment that I send in is automatically, anything first and foremost is automatically going to go to interest, and then everything on top of that is going to go to principal. So
Right.
how can I accelerate where I am as it relates to paying down my debt and hitting as much principal as I can? Now, there are a multitude of ways that you can do this. One of the best ways to do this is look at when your payment date is, and say it's the 15th of the month. All right, so you make that payment on the 15th of the month, and if you've saved any other extra funds, you can put all of those extra funds on that date of the 15th. And then, like I said before, all of your payments, first and foremost, it goes to the interest. Then anything on top of that is going to immediately reduce your principal amount. So you could do it on the 15th, you could do it on the 16th, and say your annual interest rate is $2. Once you make that payment, I'd say $100,
Yeah.
then two of those $100 is going to go to the interest, and then the other 98 is going to go to your principal, which is going to accelerate you getting out of debt faster, which is
Right.
the game piece.
That
It's
makes
all a
sense.
game.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. You know, I mean, normally I'd go through the regular questions, but I think, I mean, unless you want me to, but
No, it's whatever you
one
like.
of the,
Yeah.
one of the questions I have for you, because I keep seeing this commercial, and my husband and I are like, "What is this commercial?" And I want your opinion on it. So Poshmark has a commercial on that says Poshmark, find your side hustle, that you can sell
Okay.
items in your house. And I keep scratching my head going, wait a minute, that's not a side hustle. That's selling a bunch of crap that you bought that you didn't need, that's probably still in your credit cards and you're paying interest on. So I have this like a knee jerk negative reaction to the fact that it's a side hustle. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I mean, it is a good way to get rid of stuff. True, but
So I see it as one, a good way to lighten your cleaning load in your house, definitely. Two, I see it as a great way if you're trying to build your emergency fund fast. This is a great way to help somebody else out if they need your stuff and put money in your pocket for an emergency. Would I consider this a side hustle? I mean, it depends on how much stuff you have in your house. If
yeah,
you have a ton of stuff in your house and it's going to take you months upon months, maybe this could be a side hustle. Or if you have high name brand items in your house, you could reposition that, maybe not through this website, but there are
right,
um, other applications and other tools that want your high-end brand name things that are slightly and or gently used, and you can actually get a better return on your investment from that perspective. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I just look at it like as a one-off. Like if you're trying to get yourself out of debt, like say I have like I don't know $10,000 in credit card debt, and I have a bunch of Gucci bags, Coach bags and all this up in my closet that have barely been used. And I'm like,
Yep.
okay, if I'm going to try to pay off some credit card debt, this is a really good way to get
Yep.
some quick cash, is to sell some of that stuff off, get rid of it, and
Yep.
call it a day and pay off debt. But I guess part of what I have an issue with is I don't see it as a sustaining side hustle, because really what you're doing is it assumes that you perpetuate the purchasing power of continuing to buy goods like that if you're going to continue to sell them. In my mind, like, if
Agreed.
you get out of debt and you're trying to, like, get yourself into a position of financial power,
Yep.
that side hustle, quote unquote, should kind of be a one-off in the beginning. Get rid of everything, collect as much cash as you can to pay off things, and then don't buy more stuff until
I
you're
agree. I
70.
agree. I would not consider that that aspect of it. No, I would not consider that a side hustle whatsoever, unless you're able to become an intermediary between
Right.
people that may not want to deal with the selling and interacting with multiple sellers in order to sell their stuff, and then you act as an intermediary and say, hey, for a fee, I can move all of your high end stuff for you. Then that becomes a side hustle. Um, However, if you're just getting rid of your own stuff, please don't buy more. However, as a financial coach, I would say if that product gives you something, I don't know if it's confidence or what have you, then I would say we need to dig a little bit deeper into why you feel like that having that name brand provides that type of emotion in you. And if you still want to buy it, I have no objections with you doing that. My only thing would be, where else are we going to find some savings on the expense side? Or if you're happy with your lifestyle, once again, as a financial coach, if you're happy with your lifestyle, okay, cool. Then let's look at the other side of the equation, because that's all getting out of debt is just working both sides of the equation. You can work the income side, bringing in more money. You can work the expense side, tightening your belt, either temporarily or for the long term, in order to make your overall net worth, your overall portfolio look better. Obviously the best option, in my opinion, I should say, is working both sides. Bring in more money and lower your expenses.
Right. Right. So, all right. Well, we're about a minute or two away from the end of the show. So, I put the mastermind link in the chat in the fortune cookie. So if anybody wants to click on that and check out Desiree's course, the link is there. I'll also put it in the YouTube and the podcast so that people can access it from there. So before we go, any final thoughts? Anything you think? I'm going to throw out the last question just because I kind of like
Okay. So
it.
I would say final thoughts are, if this is you that I am talking to, know that you're not alone. Know that you don't need to walk this financial journey, your financial journey alone. Um, you can contact me directly at Desiree at mustardseedfinancialcoaching.com. Once again, Desiree, spelled desire, add another E, at mustardseedfinancialcoaching.com to learn more about the products and services that I offer. You could also follow me on Instagram at Money Mindshift Academy. Once again, Instagram at Money Mindshift Academy to get some sound bites and some bite-sized golden nuggets, if you will, of financial information, financial literacy. And just know, like I said, I just really want to iterate, as I know as we're coming out of this pandemic and student loan payments are projected to come back into being paid come May 2nd potentially. Know if you need help, help is there for you. So feel free to reach out. I'm here and happy to help you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to join the show and talk to this. I think it's really an important issue. And it's
Absolutely.
something that we need to be a little more open about, because I know when I was growing up, it was, on one end, I was told you can be anything you want to be and do anything you want to do. But on the other end, I was also told find a husband that makes a lot of money that can support you, which, like took a long time for me to reconcile. Like, okay,
Um,
how do I work this out? Um, but it is really important, and I think that many families don't talk about money, and people find themselves in debt, are embarrassed by the debt, and they feel like there's something wrong with them and they did something wrong. And I think a lot of times it's just a matter of education and a matter of
Absolutely.
shift in the mindset so you can actually manage the money better. So thank you for joining.
Thank you
Um,
for the opportunity.
yeah, with that said, that's the end of the show. And next week, we're going to take a little bit of a break. And then we come back April 15th with Stella and Snugs, who are currently living on their sailboat down in St. Martin playing music for the masses. Thanks for joining.